Good evening. This is Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Jake Gordon and Alex Lord. Really exciting episode for us because it's our first one on the Fox streaming platform. So if you're joining us from there, welcome. If you're joining us on YouTube, you can watch us live Monday through Friday. We're going to be joining you every day, 9 to 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. We got a really good episode coming up. Max Fried, Kyle Wright, injuries, Sean Murphy terrorizing opponents, Falcons strength of schedule, Bijan Robinson, Trey Young, and we're going to get into ESPN's way too early college football rankings. But we're going to start off with Max Fried, who is on the 15-day IL now with a forearm strain. And that was immediately like, sound the alarm, in my opinion. Sound the alarm. Because forearm strain sounds minor, but often leads to Tommy John surgery. The good news is we got a report, somewhat good. No UCL damage, which means no Tommy John, but it is going to be a lengthy absence for Fried, who's going to be completely shut down for probably a month, I would say, is fair. He might hit the 60-day IL. Then they're going to revamp his workload in Gwinnett, rehab start. So I think we're looking at the All-Star break at the earliest, maybe even longer than that. But the main key here is getting Fried healthy for the stretch run and into the postseason. It kind of sucks because, hey, we're talking about a guy who really looked like an NL Cy Young candidate. But with an 8-game cushion, it's all about getting him healthy for that stretch run. And let's talk about what the Braves are going to do. Jake, you got any ideas? Is it going to be free agency? Is there going to be additions? Is there going to be a trade? Or are they going to roll with guys like Dodd, Jared Schuster, and Mike Soroka?
I think they're going to have to do something because if you look at Dylan Dodd last night, he got absolutely rocked. He made like an inning and a third and gave up 7 runs or 7 hits, 6 runs, something. It wasn't pretty. I don't have the exact stat line in front of me, but there's a couple of guys in free agency. Maybe somebody, I think Chris Archer's out there. Madison Bumgarner is, he's available, I guess, even though those guys are pretty washed up. They just need somebody reliable. They might be able to make a trade, but if you look at teams that are like actually really just out of it, it's really just the A's. And I don't really think they have anybody that would be too helpful. So
No.
I don't know, unless the White Sox are really punting on this season already, which I don't think they are. I still think the Cardinals are alive and well. But if we get down the road, I would call up St. Louis about Jordan Montgomery, who's going to be a free agent this offseason, but he's a really good lefty. You could call Chicago about Lucas Giolito, but I don't think there's really anything you can do right now unless you want to go get somebody in free agency.
Yeah, I think that's a point. There's basically nothing the Braves can do externally unless you go pick up, a guy who's on the street for a reason, a guy who's lost something. I think it'll be an internal option, at least in the immediate. Guys like Dodd, Schuster, let's not forget Soroka. I know we got hit up that last time, but he's stretched out. He's ready. I can't think of a better time for him to return to Atlanta than, in the wake of these 2 injuries.
Yeah, I think it's almost 100% Mike Soroka time. I know I've kind of been saying that for the last couple of weeks, but I think it's definitely Mike Soroka. And then I don't think it's Dylan Dodd or Jared Schuster. I think that's really the problem here. I don't think either of those guys are ready. I don't think the Braves are eager to shove them into the rotation permanently and watch them get rocked time and time again. It doesn't do them any good. It doesn't do the Braves any good. So I actually think, I know the external options aren't great, and I know I've talked about Julio Teheran, Braves' old friend, clap it up, but he hasn't been in the league since 2020. Madison Bumgarner, I know everyone knows about him, but the guy has just been bad. And it's not just his numbers, which have been atrocious for the Diamondbacks. He throws like 87, 88 now. When he was throwing 93, 94, 95, he was a much different pitcher, but the velocity's down and the results speak for themselves. He's not the same guy. I also don't know if I love a guy like Bumgarner coming in to this and just like kind of ruining the vibes of the clubhouse. I don't know how he would fit. I think Chris Archer is probably the best of the big 3 that everyone knows. But yeah, if this was 2015, that'd be quite a rotation. The point is it's not. Those guys aren't any good anymore. And so maybe I almost think, yes, those are the 3 everyone's talking about. And I went through the whole list a few days ago. There weren't a lot of names that stood out that I was knew of. But listen, is there anybody better at Alex Anthopoulos at finding some random guy who can come in and contribute? And I think it very well could be some guy that nobody's heard of, that kind of has good peripherals, that may be on the come up that they sign. But I would be really shocked if the Braves don't add anyone, because whether it's depth, in case Schuster, they have to add someone because there's a good chance Jared Schuster and Dylan Dodd go out there, get wrecked. And you can't just have them going out there and getting wrecked time and time again. So at the very least, they bring in a depth piece, whether it's a really low-cost trade for a 6 starter on another team or anything to help them out and give them a backup plan. Because I don't see Kyle Wright coming back anytime soon. I just told you the diagnosis on Max Fried. Kyle Wright's dealing with his second shoulder injury over the same thing that he dealt with over the offseason that he was rehabbing all offseason. They're not going to just throw him back out there. So it's going to be a while for both of these guys. And I think at the very least, getting a backup plan, whether we know who the guy is or whether we don't, is an absolute guarantee. Absolute guarantee.
Yeah, you're mentioning, immediate fixes right now. And that's necessary as well. But something I just thought of that a lot of people haven't talked about is Colby Allard. He started the season on the 60-day IL oblique strain, and those can be treacherous for pitchers. But that's a guy who he hasn't started his rehab, or even maybe we haven't even gotten any information on him. But in terms of long-term fixes, he could be a guy.
Yeah. I just think it's almost kind of same thing with him, like oblique injuries. Like it's going to be 2 months, probably 2 more months. I know that sucks, but that's just the reality of the situation. I mean, I think the earliest he can return is early June or maybe late May because he started the season on the 60-day IL. But it's going to be a couple months or a month at least before any of those guys are ready, in my opinion.
Yeah, thankfully we're. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. So what else I thought was interesting too? You talk about Alex Anthopoulos-esque moves. Joey Wentz is still out in Detroit. He's doing okay. I think lefties only have like a 530 OPS off of him. Maybe if you can get him back for pennies on the dollar, it's somebody you try to work with again, somebody you have familiarity with. We've seen him trade for guys back. It's not necessarily uncommon.
Who did we send for Joey Wentz?
He was Shane Green, I'm pretty sure. So that's been a while.
Yeah. Shane Green. I liked Joey Wentz a lot coming up. I mean, he had a great MLB career. But let's just talk about the rotation in general and the state of the Braves without Max Fried and Kyle Wright, because everyone's freaking out. I mean, I saw people being like, oh, the season's over. Like Max Fried's gone. Listen, even if Max Fried's out for the season, no one player, not Ronald Acuna, not Max Fried, is going to derail this team from winning the NL East and competing in the playoffs as one of the best teams in the National League. That's how deep the Braves are. That's how good they are. So I want to ease everyone's concerns there. Even Max Fried being out for the entire season isn't going to drift. We won the World Series with no Acuna, with Dylan Lee and Tucker Davidson starting in the World Series against the Astros. Our best 3 pitchers were Max Fried, Charlie Morton, and Ian Anderson, who Ian Anderson at that time was good, and those were a pretty good 3, but we did not have starting pitching depth. This is something that just recently came through in the form of Spencer Strider and those guys and Kyle Wright emerging, where we actually have had a really good rotation. It's always been a weak point for the Braves, and they've had no problem competing. When you look at this offense, it's going to carry this team. Even without Max Fried, without Kyle Wright, we're going to win games where Dylan Dodd and Jared Schuster pitch if that's the direction we go, because we're going to outscore teams. And so it's not panic time, and it's especially not panic time when you have an 8-game lead in the division and the other teams are really struggling behind you.
Yeah, I think the key here is going to be Bryce Elder. Like, Bryce Elder's been great so far, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but it is kind of absurd that I think 6 of his 15 career starts have been against the Marlins. Like, that is so many. And, we've seen him get rocked against some better teams, and I think he's probably going to land somewhere in the middle between where he's at right now and just getting shelled by good teams. But if he can stay consistent for the Braves and be a consistently good pitcher, I think that's going to go a really long way, because they need that. They need him pretty much. That's all I can say. They need him.
Yeah. Listen, you just mentioned during that 2020 run that we had 3, solid pitchers, and we still have 3 solid pitchers. Spencer Strider's an ace every single day of the week. The only reason he's not going to get a game 1 ball in Atlanta is because of Max Fried. Charlie Morton has turned the clock back. He ages like a fine wine. He just pitched another gem last night. The guy, I can't believe everybody was freaking out when Anthopoulos gave him that another deal. His numbers to end last season were phenomenal. The broken leg, the weird offseason contributed to his slow start. He's still the guy. All of his peripherals look great. And like you said, Jake, Bryce Elder doesn't have to go out there and be an ace. He just has to give the Braves a chance to win the game. That's 3 starters right there. So it's not as dire as some Braves fans would have you believe. Yes, we all love Max Fried, and this is a tremendous blow. There's no replacing a guy like Max Fried. But the Braves are scoring 1 million runs every game. Like, it's okay, guys. It's okay.
Yeah, I think the Bryce Elder point is a really good one, though, Jake, because yeah, he's looks like honestly his numbers are like Cy Young-esh, and he's not going to keep that up. So it is interesting to see how much he does regress. Is he going to regress to be a solid number 3, or is he going to regress to a guy who's a borderline 4 or 5, like he kind of projected coming into him? So I do think that's interesting. And you also said 2020 on accident, Alex. But if you go back to the rotation in 2020, we had AJ Mentor going out there and throwing 3 innings to start games and critical games. Bryce Wilson was our number 3. Kyle Wright, this was bad Kyle Wright, was our number 3. And then Bryce Wilson was our number 4. We had Max Fried and Ian Anderson, and that was it. And we almost went to the World Series. So take a chill pill. This offense is going to carry us. We're going to put up runs against the best of them. And hopefully guys get healthy. But yeah, it's funny to see everyone freak out. And this is such a Braves thing, and it's such a Braves Twitter thing, and it's such a baseball thing. Everyone freaks out. Oh, we can't win anything without Max Fried. Can't win anything without Ronald Acuna. Can't win anything without this guy, or that guy. And the facts are you just can't, because Ozzie Albies is playing out of his mind. We're going to get into Sean Murphy. The guy's an absolute all-star, superstar, looking like an MVP. Matt Olson's on pace to hit 50 bombs. Austin Riley hasn't even gotten hot yet. And obviously Ronald Acuna probably going to win the MVP if he stays healthy. No one guy is that important to this team. And that's what's so important in baseball is like the best team that wins the World Series usually has 30, 35 guys. It's not 25. It's not 20. It's not the top 20. It's 30, 35 guys that takes to win a World Series. The Braves have been more injured than probably anyone in the league. And they have one of the best records in baseball, best record in the National League. That's how much depth this team has. And they can roll with the punches in any situation.
Yeah, and there's you can't really take off the gas at this point. But if you look at the team as a whole and the division as a whole, I don't think anybody's really going to be challenging them. The Mets have had their own troubles with their rotation. The Marlins are the Marlins at the end of the day. Washington's had a decent start, but they're still Washington. The Phillies are a mess. They're just as beat up as we are. So if the Braves just can keep outscoring people, I don't think it's viable to win a World Series. But they could be healthier by October. That's the thing. And anything can happen in October. It doesn't matter. If your bats are hot at the right time, look at the Phillies. They were the exact same way. So, yeah, I just think the key thing is just, keep winning at a consistent pace. Don't let anybody catch you, and then you can let those guys get back up to speed.
Yeah, I agree. And I think they're going to do just fine in doing that. And they've proven that they can through each year. And I think this next guy that we're going to talk about, Sean Murphy, playing like an MVP. I remember me saying, hey, I'm not sure if this William Contreras grade is that much of an upgrade. I couldn't have been more wrong. And this is why Alex Anthopoulos is the executive of the year. Even if he doesn't win it every year, he's the best executive in baseball. I think he's proven that. And I think he's going to continue to prove that. And I think he finally wins the award this